1 minute first at 6 a.m. East African time. Thank you so much for always keeping it TV47. We're all excited and we want to share that excitement with you. You must be wondering what it's all about. By the way, it's just a surprise package for you because guess what? TV47 is officially on DSTV channel 268. 268 is where you'll be tuning in and get to watch TV47. You've been asking for this and for the love that you've shown us and the love that we have for you. We certainly have delivered. It's going to be a day full of activities. The TV47 team is all excited to introduce you to this new platform that is going to open great opportunities, not just for you, but for us. It's going to be fun. We promise you more and interesting content. So keep it right here. This day is going to be very memorable for us and for you. Ensure that you tune into TV47 right from now, where I kickstart the day all the way to the end of the day, the very last of programs that should be Garden of Eden. So welcome on board. My name is Linda Alela. It's time for Morning Cafe as we start this day on a very great note. Hashtag TV47 is on DSTV. So make sure that you interact with us. You keep talking to us. You tell us what it is that you expect from us, and we'll certainly be here to deliver. Let's kickstart the day as we take a look at what it is that my team has prepared on Matters News. Remember, as always, we'll be having candid discussions that revolve issues that affect you directly or indirectly. Later on also will all be about fashion. So it's going to be an interesting Tuesday lined up for you. Wednesday, So let's kickstart. And the Parliamentary Service Commission, PAC, now says it will challenge Chief Justice David Maraga's advice to President Uhuru Kenyatta to dissolve Parliament. PAC, led by Speaker Justin Muturi, has termed Maraga's advice as ill-advised and illegal. Elizabeth Mutuku reports on the advice that raised a heated debate in Parliament yesterday afternoon.
The Parliamentary Service Commission, through its chair, Speaker Justin Muturi, says it will file a case in court to seek legal interpretation over the matter. This comes a day after the Chief Justice David Maraga advised the President to dissolve Parliament for failure to enact the two-thirds gender rule, which has failed to see the light of the day for 4 times.
Parliamentary Service Commission, in furtherance of its constitutional mandates, and on the request of the Speakers of the 2 Houses of Parliament, has resolved to engage Council to immediately proceed to the High Court, pursuant to Article 165, Clause 3 of the Constitution, to challenge the unlawful and unconstitutional action taken by the Right Honourable Chief Justice.
Speaker Justin Muturi, however, says that members of Parliament will continue to receive their salaries.
Wabunge wote watapokea mishahara yao. Na hakuna muda wowote katika katiba ambao umewekwa wa kumlazimisha rais kuchukua hatua ile ambayo jaji mkuu amemshauri achukue. Hakuna muda wowote. Ule muda ambao uko katika kipengele cha 259 na unasema kwa kimombo reasonable period.
Debate over Maraga's advice shaping the afternoon session's debate in both houses, with members bashing Chief Justice David Maraga over the matter.
When we understand from the Honorable His Excellency the President and the Prime Minister that the BBI report is about to be released, that would be a good occasion to consider the depth of these matters. If you were to take that advice now, Mr. Speaker, we'll plunge into a deeper constitutional crisis. Therefore, my view, Mr. Speaker, is that advice, well-meaning as it might be, is advice that should not be taken because we've been in a crisis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I have been elected to this August House 3 times. The people who elect me most, my loyal supporters, are women. And every weekend I go to Garissa. And the women of Garissa Township, they don't know anything about this two-thirds gender principle. They don't know.
However, a section of male legislators are blaming their female counterparts over the failure of the law.
In the cabinet itself, there's no two-thirds gender rule, Mr. Speaker. This Parliament has worked extra hard, Mr. Speaker, to achieve this. And the many legislators who are shouting outside there, particularly our female colleagues, they should stop pretending, Mr. Speaker. We've been in this Parliament, and the time of voting when it was here, they were away in New York to gain allowances, Mr. Speaker, as opposed to advancing this. It is really shameful, Mr. Speaker, for those of you. If you push me, I'll mention your names.
We have not been having full house of women MPs in this house, Mr. Speaker. Let truth be told. They are the ones who are failing us. I have never failed to be here to vote for this amendment. Most of them have not been here. Many of them. And when you say that, they get agitated. You should not be agitated. If you are elected here to come and represent women issues, please do it.
Maraga, in his advice to the president, termed parliament as illegally constituted, a move that has raised a heated debate in both houses.
The president that it will be an extremely dangerous misadventure to try and dissolve parliament. Parliament has a fixed term, nobody can interfere. The good old days, the bad old days, Madam Speaker, when you would be on the floor speaking the way I'm speaking, and there's a news flash that the president has dissolved parliament, and your speech ends there and you go home. Those days are gone.
I am not persuaded that the president does not have a jurisdiction quasi-judicial to check whether the process under Article 261 has been followed. Madam Speaker, we want to tell His Excellency at the time he's exercising this jurisdiction, and we hope the Attorney General, who is mentioned in Article 261(6)(b), that the order directing Parliament and the Attorney General to take steps to ensure that the required legislation is enacted. Madam Speaker, this part of the Constitution was not complied with.
And now it's just a matter of wait and see who has the final say in dissolving parliament between President Uhuru Kenyatta and the judiciary. Elizabeth Mutuku, Parliament Buildings, Nairobi.
Well, it's going to be some interesting time. And still on the same note, the advice by the Chief Justice David Maraga has been criticized by a section of lawyers, with some claiming it does not compel the president to dissolve parliament. The supporters of the BBI process now claiming that the solution to the matter will be addressed by BBI, as Joash Onsari tells us.
The advisory by the Chief Justice David Maraga to the President to dissolve Parliament has raised mixed reactions from legislators and lawyers.
Simply an advisory, not a judicial decision. Advisory in legal interpretation means consultations.
And once it dissolves Parliament, you are home. Personally, I'm not scared, and I'm willing to go home. And I'm willing to be elected or be thrown out.
And Mr. Speaker, this is one thing that we should not accept. This is politics. This is politics. This is politicizing the institution of Parliament.
With a section of senior lawyers now claiming that the law does not compel the president to dissolve Parliament. Lawyer Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi says Article 261 Section 7 gives the president the way to ignore the advisory. His sentiments echoed by Professor Tom Ojienda, who says that the president will not dissolve the House. A section of members of Parliament are now pointing out at the contradictions in the law.
But every cloud has a silver lining. Mr. Speaker, the silver lining on this cloud is that now members of this House have a chance to look at the various contradictions that we have in our Constitution and see how best we can resolve them. The only way to resolve these contradictions that we have in the Constitution is through the BBI process, not by this advisory to the President.
The Constitution and Implementation Committee's Chairman Jeremiah Kioni says the dissolution of Parliament will create a constitution crisis.
The Constitution that we have is a product, by and large, of activism. We must be very careful, because the implementers of a constitution that was brought forth by activism should not be activists. You will burn the country.
Tunajua kwamba bunge ndio inatoa makadirio ya zile pesa zitatumika. Sasa ikiwa tunavunja kwa njia ambayo haijulikani, alafu ni nani, ni bunge gani itaweka rasilimali ama pesa za kuendesha program za Wakenya kutoka hapa? Na tena tujiulize, kuna maana gani kuvunjilia hili bunge, na tumebaki sasa chini ya miaka miwili tuingie kwa uchaguzi. Tumebaki na miezi karibu 20 peke yake tuingie kwa uchaguzi wa 2022. Kwa hivyo kuna haja gani kuvunjilia sasa bunge iliyoko?
Joash Onsare, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, since 2003, Rwanda's constitution has required women to hold 30% of elected positions. Today, with 49 women in parliament, that figure is 61%, the highest in the world. 4 of the 7 Supreme Court seats are held by women. Diana Iriza tells us how Rwanda unraveled the gender parity riddle.
Rwanda has moved from a nation that treated women like property, whose chief function was to have children, to one that constitutionally mandates that at least 30% of government positions are occupied by women. We spoke to Frank Habineza, a member of the parliament, to give us a brief background on how women got involved in Rwandan leadership and politics.
I think you heard about the Beijing conference, the famous Beijing conference, where women were invited. I think it was like starting with the women movement. So most of Rwandan women were in the civil society platform. Then we went there. There was a platform, I think, for family trade. There were many NGOs dealing in the women affairs. At that time, we did not have a lot of national platforms for women. We didn't have national women council or what. So that parliamentary forum proposed a new law, which was voted, of course, as a law, and then that helped to make sure that by the time we were enacting a new constitution in 2003, they made sure that women became a key component in the new parliament.
Just like in Kenya, Rwanda has a bicameral parliament. It consists of 2 chambers, the Senate upper house and the Chamber of Deputies lower house. Rwanda was the first country in the world with a female majority in parliament, currently at 61.3% for the lower house and 38.5% for the upper house. Nonetheless, a lot of concerns have been expressed globally on the productivity of the women in the parliament in Rwanda.
But according to me, it shows me that women has given the floor or the stage to show what they can do. Because I don't think there is something men can do that women cannot do. Giving them the floor to show what they can do, it shows the capability of women too. Unlike before 1994 and everything. But according to me, directly, I don't think I have seen some effect.
But women can work like men. Before, men had the big number in the parliament, but no one said about their production in the parliament. But when women are in the big number, people start to say that they are not contributing in the development of the country, which is not true. In the parliament, when, for example, there is an idea which is positive, it can be from a man or from a woman. So a good idea, doesn't depend on the gender.
In Rwanda, the presidency remains the domain of men since year 2000. The office has been held by Paul Kagame, the former military commander whose forces ended the genocide, but women occupy 13 of the 26 seats in the Rwanda's cabinet. Viewed as an authoritarian by some, a visionary leader by others, Kagame, with his ruling Rwanda Patriotic Front, championed the push to form a new national identity that purged any mention of Hutu and Tutsi and took giant leaps toward gender equality.
Thanks, Diana Iriza, for that. Police officers in Kayole, Nairobi have launched a manhunt for 2 men of Somali origin suspected of killing 2 other people at Nasra Estate in Kayole on Thursday last week. This as fresh details obtained as the scene of a crime emerged, revealing events leading to the killings of the 2, among them 23-year-old Dennis Jabuto and 23-year-old Joseph Maingi. David Mudhuko has more.
Thursday, 17th September at 6:52 p.m. CCTV footage from this building shows this man in a blue t-shirt accompanied by his partner in a grey t-shirt.
Joseph Mengi.
The two are seen trying to gain entry into a lift before two other men, among them a security guard, are seen engaging them in what seems like a conversation. The man in the blue t-shirt and his friend, both of Somali origin, appear to ditch their plans to board the lift as they opt for the stairs. Moments later, the security guard inside this Leona shopping mall, 23-year-old Dennis Nyabuto, is seen barricading the stairs in an attempt to block the two men from accessing other floors located in the upper side of this building. A confrontation ensues, and it takes the intervention of passers-by to calm the situation. Moments later, the two men who were allegedly forcing entry into the building are now seen exiting the building. TV47 can confirm that the two men who are forcing entry into the building are residents of Kayole who had often frequented a gym located atop this building. On this Thursday, however, the ownership had sent stern warnings that the gym was off bounds to the aforementioned. The reason why the security guard was vehemently denying them entry. His friend is 23-year-old Joseph Mengi, a car wash operator at a nearby car wash station. At 8:10 p.m., approximately an hour and 10 minutes after the Leona shopping mall incident, one of the men who is in a blue t-shirt is seen sitting on a couch at an adjacent building. He seems restless, and moments later, he reaches for his phone in his trouser pocket, appears to read something, then heads out. 8:12 p.m. A CCTV footage shows this man in the blue t-shirt standing outside. Moments later, his grey t-shirt friend, who now has a red sweater, joins him. Then the two leave together. Sources intimate that the latter had briefly parted ways with his accomplice to go pick a knife, which would be the murder weapon in what ensued thereafter. Eyewitnesses say the two suspects then went to confront the security guard and his friend for a second time, and that is where things went south. Daggers were drawn, and the two, who sustained stomach, thigh and chest injuries, later died after they were taken to Metropolitan Hospital. One was announced dead on arrival, while the other succumbed to his injuries later on the same night.
Huyu kijana alikuwa anafanya kazi ya security kwa hii nyumba ambayo inaonekana nyuma yetu. Na hawa vijana waliweza kuleta mgogoro kwa sababu imekuwa ni siku kadhaa na walikuwa wanakatazwa kuingia huku juu kwa sababu ya muda wa kuruhusu watu kuingia huko ndani.
The suspects are said to have fled the crime scene shortly after stabbing the victims. The police are yet to make any arrests 4 days later. However, Kayole OCPD Paul Wambugu has insisted that police in the area are pursuing crucial leads. Residents are still unable to come to terms with the two gruesome murders.
Ni jambo la kutatanisha and it's very painful. So haki itendeke.
David Muthoka, TV47, Nairobi.
Pretty much unfortunate. And away from that, KEMSA will incur a loss of up to 6.1 billion shillings from a bungled anti-COVID-19 PPEs procurement deal. This, according to the National Assembly Health Committee Chair, Sabina Chege, who says the authority has been able to offload COVID-19 merchandise worth 1 billion shillings only after procuring merchandise worth 7.2 billion shillings. Zainab Mohammed with the details.
It has been weeks of probing the KEMSA scandal, and on Tuesday, the National Assembly Health Committee came face to face with a 6.1 billion shillings loss sitting still in a KEMSA warehouse. The irony is, the loss is on items that have been the most sought after nationally in the last 6 months, PPEs. The authority procured expensive masks en masse, but they couldn't sell them.
We are going through a difficult moment to understand the reverse procurement that was done by KEMSA. And so the second category of items that were procured here, they were brought to the warehouses, they were negotiated, and they are not yet paid. And also we have a third category of items that have been received by KEMSA in these warehouses. They have not negotiated with the suppliers, and also they have not been paid.
Earlier, KEMSA Director General had told the House Committee that the Medical Supplies Authority would incur a loss of 2.3 billion shillings. During the visit at the KEMSA warehouse, Health Committee Chair Sabina Chege dismissed the claims, saying the loss might just be way higher if the current market price of the merchandise are to be factored in.
The 7.1 is the total amount spent by KEMSA with their own resources, not what was allocated by the ministry, where they projected that they would buy the items and sell. So they did procurement with their own resources. What they have been able to sell so far is items worth around 1 billion. That's why now the 6.1 billion is what is here and not sold.
The committee further established that the authority, in readiness for a surge in COVID-19 infections in the month of October, procured tons of KN95 masks at 730 shillings, only for the masks to flood the market and the prices dipped to as low as 200 shillings each.
So their target market, and they said it was a projection by the numbers that were projected by October that we are going to be at the peak. So they overprocured. And so the prices currently are low as 250 in the market. Them they're selling at 735. So who is going to buy?
The committee is set to table its report before Parliament next week. Zainab Mohammed, TV47.
Now, the Kenya National Union of Teachers now says that pupils and students will be safer in schools than at home. This is according to NAT Secretary General Wilson Sossion, who now says a day after the Teachers Service Commission directed teachers to report to school on Monday next week. NAT, however, says that teachers are required to be keen in ensuring that both boys and girls in schools are treated equally upon resumption.
The Kenya National Union of Teachers Secretary General Wilson Sossion says that children will be safer in schools than they are at home.
Children are safer in schools than at home. Even if we were ordered to report tomorrow, Wednesday, and children to come back on Thursday, that one we are ready. You can be very sure.
As a key stakeholder, Sossion says teachers will give their all to ensure the safety of children when they are in school.
We are urging our teachers, give to schools and to children what you have never given in your lives, because we are going to work in a completely different, strange environment, and we are receiving learners who have gone through various challenges back at home, and therefore we need to get back to our basic foundations in education, basic foundations in education psychology, so that we can manage learners very well. It calls for a lot, and I urge government and TSC, give teachers the necessary support. They need peace to work. That is all we need.
He further says that teachers will come up with strategies to ensure preventive measures are followed to the latter by pupils.
You cannot tell a doctor how to treat a patient, and therefore you cannot tell a teacher how to take care of a child. Bring the child to school and go home and leave the child with us.
Meanwhile, the Teachers Service Commission has directed teachers to work with the relevant stakeholders to ensure thorough cleaning of classrooms, offices, dormitories, and ensure all amenities are habitable for learners. Develop strategies designed to offer psychological support to learners and other stakeholders, as well as prepare materials for curriculum delivery, including timetables and lesson plans. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
And that story by Mwangi Maina will be taking us for a short brief. A reminder that TV47 is officially on DSTV. Hashtag TV47 on DSTV. Drop your comments and your feedback. We promised and we've certainly delivered. We're right here to ensure that, yes, you get it bigger and better. And we'll be having my team on ground. So we'll be picking up some links, trying to listen to what it is that they're preparing for us down on ground as they get to engage you from your respective respective place, just so we all celebrate this milestone. So after this short break, we'll be coming back with the newspaper and the very same links that we're talking about with our reporters on ground. It is indeed a day full of activity for TV47 and for you, our loyal viewer. After this break, Oh yes, a change, Linda, you must be wondering. But then again, if you were with me right from the start, then you understand it's a special day, a crucial milestone for us as TV47 and you back at home for always being loyal to us. We are officially on a DSTV channel 268 and we welcome you because we'll be having so much in store for you. Loaded content, great content. Be part of this family all the way. Today is a special day because it's that crucial day where we get to DSTV and we'll have full house of activities, special stories where you will have our reporters on ground. We'll have them coming to you and, having those candid discussions. Remember, it is the home of untold stories. We traverse all the different parts of the country, all the 47 counties, to ensure that we tell your story in a special way. So welcome once again, and it is time now that we cross over to the newspaper. We have Nordine on standby. Nordine Kagai will be taking us through this. He's a lawyer and also a political analyst. To expand some more on what has been captured on the newspaper, we have the Daily Nation with me, the People Daily, and we also have the Standard newspaper. So we take a look at what has been captured on the front page of the Daily Nation. And the biggest story, can Uhuru save the day? And at crossroads, faced with limited options, President Uhuru Kenyatta is right here trying to ponder on what to respond or how to respond to the Chief Justice, that is David Maraga's advice to dissolve Parliament over the 2/3 gender rule failure. And the President, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta, must now do the right thing by the Constitution and by Kenyans. Captured on page 4. This is a story that we've been talking about right from the day before yesterday, and very many people coming to weigh in their sentiments and, just trying to say whether it is right for the president to proceed and dissolve or not. Nordine, coming to you. First of all, what do you make of this? Constitutionally, CJ David Maraga proceeded to do what it is that the Constitution required him to do, which many have, looked at in different angles or different lenses.
First of all, congratulations to you guys for joining this TV.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's a wonderful milestone.
Yeah.
Now on the CJ, I believe this is a momentous moment we're living.
Yep.
And CJ has done what he'd call the final nail in the coffin. Because you see, he's sleeping. And now he's left us with something to ponder. Because as per his advice to the president, he has told the president to dissolve Parliament because they have failed to enact the 2/3 gender law. Now, where we sit, for example, we're at a point where the president has certain options that he can go and follow up with. I think what he has in store for him, he can get a stay order, or the CJ's advisory, which you see the Parliament, the committee has already wants to go to get an injunction. And further, or he can actually buy time. Because you see, as much as the Constitution says he should dissolve, it gives no time frame. So the president can decide to buy time. Or actually subject the same advice or proposal to public participation under Article 10 of the Constitution, or finally just dissolve the Parliament. So where he sits right now, he's in a tight spot, and I believe he can get sound counsel around him, because in as much as Article 261(7) says that the CJ shall advise the president to dissolve Parliament, and the president shall dissolve Parliament. Now, if you look at the word shall under the Black's Law Dictionary, definition of shall, it can be construed as imperative or mandatory, but may also be construed to be permissive or directory, meaning it's equivalent to may. So he can decide, I've heard what you say, I'll decide on what to do. In the same breath,
right?
In the same breath, in him deciding on what to do, he must remember one thing. At Uhuru Park, when he was being sworn in, there's an oath of office he took, where he said, I will preserve, uphold, and protect the Constitution. So he can't seem to go against the same Constitution that he when he was sworn in, he can't be seen to go contravene the same constitution. Because if he does that, then we have, there's a recourse. Because anyone now can, through a motion, try to impeach him.
All right. Well, we try and ponder some more on that later on the broadcast. We'll be having another panel after, the newspaper review. I mean, also just to pick what has been captured equally on the front page of the People Daily. It's in regards to the same and the tough balance for President Uhuru Kenyatta, as they would say, whichever direction he decides to take will have ramifications, will have, tough consequences, and grave and dire for that matter. Captured on page 5, 6, and 7, and also 4 of the People Daily, and they just give a snippet of what exactly it would look like, or the situation would like if he decides to disobey that advisory. Then the president can choose to ignore the advisory, but the courts can overturn decisions of an illegal parliament. If it is about to dissolve, the president can go ahead and end the life of parliament. The consequences include voiding laws. If it is about a delay, then the president can choose to wait to dissolve the institution later, but how MPs will operate is unknown. If it is about challenge, then president can challenge the advisory in court and wait for the verdict. And lastly, if it is about seeking a second opinion, then the president can ask the Supreme Court to give its opinion on the same. We all acknowledge and we know very well that the CJ again sits in the Supreme Court. And that aside, we come back to the Daily Nation and pick this story that is about matters education. School timetable candidates report back on October the 5th. Well, we've seen that declaration by the numerous stakeholders on matters education, the like of Susion, arguing that it's important to have our students back to school because they are safer there from what has been seen. So the October reopening of schools will be in phases, ending the 6 months of closure occasioned by COVID-19 pandemic. But still, even as the TSC calls upon teachers to go to school and see whether indeed they can set up the ground for the students. Remember also, it's not so clear coming from the Ministry of Education or from the CS himself, who is expected to declare the actual date on when we'll have our students go back to school. What do you make of this, Nordin?
When you see the you see the confusion in history.
Yeah.
Because first and foremost, apparently now children are safer at school than at home. What measures have they put to protect the same children? The teachers being told to go back to work, have they been consulted? Because they are the ones who are going to spend time with the children. You see, and further, there is no opening or closing date. So we are asking ourselves, what is the rush? They have been out of school since March. So what's this rush or urge that suddenly they open school in October? So what term will that? Will it be first term, second term, third term? Or will they just be going to school for a month and we close? Because we can see the December holidays are here already. So I believe we shouldn't be quick to rush opening schools, but let's take time to come up with solutions and guidelines on how to protect children. Then, therefore, we can reopen schools. Because I don't see the rush, to be honest.
All right. Well, and we wait to see what will happen in regards to the same. Also, we'll be here to update you. Still on the front page of the Daily Nation, trouble over bank accounts. 191 officers in foreign missions risk criminal trial on secret bank accounts abroad. This report came out yesterday, and of course, it's going to see very many people get into trouble in regards to the same. A story that has been captured on page 10 of the Daily Nation. But away from that, COVID vaccine soon, and Kenya is on the list of countries that is set to receive a vaccine come next year. A story that has been captured on page 8 of the Daily Nation. A good move for that matter?
I believe yes and no. Why? Yes, in the sense that if the vaccine is what we need, and if at all it's secure, yes. But if we are being turned into guinea pigs, hell no. Because you see, I believe there was a discussion where Africa was to be used as a guinea pig. Mm-hmm. Now we need to wake up from being used as guinea pigs. In as much as we were colonized, it doesn't mean that should be our fate. So if at all it's the proper vaccine, kudos. But if not, if it's a trial and error, you can as well try it elsewhere.
Well, as we cross fingers for the best, we wait and see what happens in regards to the same. Kenya to go solo in trade talks with the United Kingdom. And Kenya has now decided it will go it alone in negotiations for an economic partnership agreement with the United Kingdom, leaving its East African counterparts or neighbors with an option to join later. Just what is there? I mean, well, probably a good move. And what could have informed the fact that Kenya is now going it alone and leaving behind the rest of the East African brothers? What could have informed this amid all these talks of, the derail of, seeking or to, getting the integration, the East African integration?
It's a good move for Kenya economically, most definitely.
Yeah.
But regionally, it's a wrong move because we are meant to be a region, and there's a reason why the East African community was formed. Now, if at all we don't move as a unit, or if at all we don't consult each other, that's a problem. Because now it shows like Kenya was imposing this upon the other countries instead of having a dialogue and conversation. So what we should do, yes, we might be the powerhouse economically, regionally, but we should be able to accommodate dissenting views, because through that we can come to a consensus and have better way of moving. Yeah.
All right. Well, we wait to see what will happen or culminate in regards to the same as well, and we'll be here to update you. But that aside, also the Boko Haram story. This is on African News. Boko Haram killed commander 7 soldiers. A top Nigerian military commander and 7 soldiers were killed by Boko Haram terrorists in Nigeria, northeast, the epicenter of the group's insurgency. Captured on page 25. And yesterday also we had a conversation, we had a story that was talking about how, of course, the leaders are coming out to call upon parents to ensure that they are vigilant so that they do not get their students or their children radicalized into Al-Shabaab. And it's pretty much unfortunate that we still are dealing with the question of terrorists, and as a global fraternity, it still becomes a nightmare on dealing with them. I mean,
the hassle of the failure to power the approaches to the CG's advisory to the president. That was brought about also by Article 100. For the promotion of representation of marginalized groups. Among them are women, PWBs, and youth. So you see that there's a fact that the youth, like in this story, the Boko Haram story, the youth have been marginalized. It's no source of empowerment, politically, socially, and economically. And if you're pushed to the wall, they are left to do what they are doing. So if at all the government will raise or up its game and help the youth achieve economic freedom, we will be able to solve such things in Africa.
Yeah. All right, and that aside, to the People Daily's front page, and we've captured this one, which was also one of the subjects that we'll be expounding on as we proceed with the show. And fumigation order for schools that were COVID centers, also that one we've touched on matters education and what to expect for our children. And this one also that has been expounded on page 2, thousands of policemen to be promoted. And that is probably something that is going to come in as a sigh of relief. New rules unveiled ahead of promotion of 3,500 officers. The National Police Service Commission yesterday issued a raft of regulations that will guide the promotions of at least 3,500 officers from the ranks of constable to chief inspector. Sigh of relief for our officers?
Yes, I believe it is.
Yeah.
I believe it's a step in the right direction, because we need, first of all, we need rules and laws on how we can recruit police officers. And we also need to come up with solutions for their upkeep and whatnot. Because most of them live in deplorable situations.
Yeah.
And that is why you see them act the way they act at times. And I doubt whether they're ever cancelled. So, we need to, I see Mutembe is working in the right direction. So we need to congratulate him on that.
All right. Well, and that aside, we've seen governors appear before the Senate committees to expound or to give accountability on how monies have been used on their respective counties or in their respective counties. And yesterday, Governor Nyong'o, Kisumu governor, was thrown out for failing to avail vital documents to support county expenditure. And yes, this is, at that proceeding or during the proceedings in the Senate. When you look at this and the fact that we've seen numerous governors, appearing before the Senate committee to expound some more on how monies were used in their counties. First of all, what do you make of these grills? Are they likely to bring solutions and aspect of accountability coming from the same governors, and not forgetting the fact that very many of them have been alleged to have, taken part on matters of corruption in their counties?
I believe first and foremost, as much as we say the national government has failed us in devolution, governors are also the biggest impediment in devolution. Because the amount of economic crimes we see every other day are serious. And that is why we even saw in Kisumu, they burnt the offices. I think that was killing the records or destroying the records. In Kitui, we saw the same thing. And these committees, they meet, for example, the Senate. See, the Senate should have some momentum in dealing with this thing. Because I believe they should move away from party lines, which is hard, I understand. But as much like they did with the revenue allocation, they should have the same vigor and valor and move to deal with governors who are actually stealing from the counties, because that is just theft. It's not corruption. We've moved from corruption. It's robbery.
All right. Well, okay. And coming to matters COVID-19, and families now can accord loved ones a decent burial. This after strict guidelines for the burial of COVID-19 victims have been reviewed to allow families accord their loved ones a decent send-off of the Ministry of Health. This is that declaration that was made yesterday. And generally looking at the events and how the numbers of COVID-19 are being considered to go down, do you suppose then that the likelihoods that after President Uhuru Kenyatta, set up that committee on, they have this conversation on COVID-19, are there likelihoods that, yes, the restrictions, the tight restrictions that were put on board will be eased?
Yes, I believe there is a likelihood that the restrictions will be eased. Because where we are going right now, the country, people really want to be able to do or go about their own things. Because right now, life is hard, you can tell. And the restrictions are pressing people to the edge of the wall. Now, for him as well, in as much as he would like to have the restrictions, he has to relinquish them, because at the end of the day, he wants to bring about the BBI. And we know most definitely it can't work with the restrictions. So we hope for a better day once he addresses us in a good shirt and says, fellow Kenyans. So we are hopeful that freedom will come at last.
All right, and away from that, as we talk about the BBI, the conversation is still here with us, BBI proponents in Catch-22 Sport after Ashoka. This is a story that has been captured on page 6 of the People Daily. And constitution change adherents struggle to find relevance after opinion splits. Legal experts and professionals alike, the political class and legal experts, now, of course, yesterday divided on the implications of the advisory by Chief Justice David Maraga, and I think we've touched on that, and what the ramifications of the same would be on the BBI initiative, or the Building Bridges initiative. And while a section of politicians and legal experts were in agreement of the same, others have argued that the BBI, with MPs yesterday calling for implementation to address gaps in the constitution, they say that then the BBI would come in handy to address the same. What would this mean for the BBI?
First and foremost, for those who are proponents of the BBI, they are happy with what the CJ has done. Because now they have something to call about. Because now they'll use this as one of the reasons for the amendments in the Constitution.
Yeah.
However, the arguments out there right now, after the advice of the CJ, is whether laws passed by Parliament will have any effect, or whether it still has the oversight role, or whether Parliament still can vet any state appointments. So we are at a unique time, and we are getting to see what the political class will do. Because so far, you see the three top political leaders are quiet this issue.
Yeah.
So for those who are for BBI, deep down, they are happy. And if they didn't have followers in the National Assembly, after what the CJ has done, believe you me, they will recruit some people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we wait to see what will happen. Still forms the cartoon edition of the People's Daily, and yes, is indeed a swarm of VBs that have been thrown into Parliament. While many people have argued that this is the best move, we've seen how Parliament was outrageous yesterday as they were reacting to the same. What do you make of this cartoon edition?
It's a good one.
Yeah.
As a young man, I believe the CJ's move is a tremendous move.
Right.
You know why? Because I believe this is the time as young people we need to take or seize this moment.
Right.
If at all there's a by-election coming,
Yeah.
this is the time to offer alternative leadership. Because if, as we see, Parliament has failed to enact legislation, or the two-third gender legislation, then we should use this as a mechanism to get those positions, because this is the time, I believe, it's a time for change, and the CJ has only sparked the fire. We are ready to take it from there.
All right. Thank you so much, Nordine Kagai, for the great insights right here on the newspaper review. It's now time that we wind up on the same as we cross over to the current affairs segment. We discuss the state of the nation, the stories that are making center stage, and we expound some more, ponder some more on the same for your very own benefit. We'll be having specialists on board, so keep it right here. Remember, the hashtag this morning is hashtag TV47 on DSTV, hashtag home of untold stories. TV47 is officially on DSTV. Today, we mark that milestone, and we want to celebrate this day with you. Great content coming your way, great stories coming your way. We'll have our people on ground. We'll be traversing different parts of the country, so at least they get to engage with you, and we also get to see your feedback and what you expect of us. We promise nothing better or nothing less than goodies and goody for you. So after this break, we'll be coming back with much more. Constitution, still people continue to ponder on the same. Different politicians also weighing in their sentiments. Parliament are feeling as though they're being shortchanged on this particular one, and different reactions coming in regards to the same. Some women celebrating this, some, putting some question mark on the same. And joining me for this conversation is Gloria Oroba, Youth Policy Analyst, who's officially with us today for once. Good to have you.
Thank you.
And you're coming on a very good day, because then officially we're on DSTV.
Oh,
today,
wow.
yeah, that's
Okay.
the reason why I'm dressed out this. I should be getting you a t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we'll also be having Joseph Simeha, who's a political analyst and governance expert, to expound on the same. We're expecting Honorable Boni Khalwale in the event that he shows up. Then again, we'll still continue to ponder on the same. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming this morning, and of course for finding time for us this morning. Simeha, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
I'm good. Good to have you.
Good to have you too. I hope you send me my t-shirt via Skype.
I will make sure that I do that, plus a cape and a mask. You can be rest assured you'll get that.
Yes.
All right, Karibu Sana. So I don't think I need to introduce this subject so much, because it's what people have been talking about as from Monday evening after the CJ decided to drop that bombshell. And yes, what do you expect of this, really? I mean, people still continue on whether it's about dissolve, it's about seek more advisory, it's about, think otherwise, overlook what it is that the CJ has done. But then again, the Constitution stands.
Exactly, the Constitution stands, but time and time again, we've actually witnessed court orders being, defied. We've witnessed a lot of these leaders going against the Constitution.
Right.
So I don't know. My expectation is not really that anything is going to happen. I think at the very least, what I expect is that our legislators in Parliament and our leaders would actually find ways to solve the problem, which is achieving the two-third gender rule. So I feel as though, as much as we are now in this situation where, there's a call to dissolve Parliament and stuff like that, we should definitely be looking at why is that call and how can we solve that problem. I'm not expecting the president to do much. I mean, this is, we've really seen where there are a lot of court orders directed to the executive, directed to certain leaders, and they've been defied. So there's nothing different about this one, I just feel as though at one point, Maraga actually wants to show that, regardless of who or how these orders are being taken or this advisory is being taken, I'm going to do my part as a citizen, I'm going to do my part as the Chief Justice, and I'm going to follow the Constitution. So whether or not the president decides to take up any action or, as we have seen before, just ignore it, I feel as though, that's it won't be surprising if it's ignored. It's
pretty much unfortunate to even speak about that, and it breaks the hearts of numerous people who are into saying to it that the Constitution is upheld, and importantly, the rule of law is upheld. And we'll be coming to expand some more on that, what it means when we can comfortably say that, there are likelihoods that they can go against that, and it will be just that, and nothing much will be done. But before we get to that, Simeha, Gloria raises a crucial point, that it's time now that Parliament, has gets to have that conversation and see to it that they address this issue of two-third gender rule. But from what we saw yesterday in Parliament, it has become a ping-pong affair. It has become a crybaby affair. It has become an affair whereby some of them argue that actually it is not the male counterparts that did not want to see the two-third gender rule sail through, but the female counterparts.
What I would like, first of all, to deal with your media house, other media houses, is as much as possible to promote comprehensive discussion around this issue. Because when I've sampled discussions on this issue on television, on radio, and the newspapers, and largely it's limited to legal technicalities. But I think it's a much broader issue, and I think Chief Justice Maraga has provided an opportunity for this country to confront the problem it has, and that problem cannot be solved by, in my opinion, a simple law about numbers. I think it's well beyond that. The country confronts this so that we see to it that we take every step possible to meet not just the two-thirds gender, but what also is provided in the Constitution of Kenya under the Bill of Rights in terms of equality on gender, in people with disability, all other disadvantaged groups.
Yeah.
So, first of all, just to plead that this conversation needs to be made a broader conversation than a conversation about numbers and we don't have just problem of gender inequality in parliament. We have it in the executive, we have it in the judiciary, we have almost all public institutions. That's my part plea. And then now coming to the specifics of this issue, I think it's important to, place perspective an important question as an order of the High Court 2017 that previous parliament applies to current parliament. Because you remember that the Chief Justice is only conveying a decision order of the High Court, advising the President on the basis of an order of the High Court. He's not making his own decision. It's not a decision of the Supreme Court. The Constitution is that with the purview of the High Court. So I think that is one thing we need to look at. But overall, I think it's an opportunity. This crisis is actually an opportunity for the nation to engage in a more robust discussion on how best. Let me just finalize by drawing your attention.
Yeah.
I finalize by drawing your attention to Article 27, which is what I think we'll talk a lot about. It comes to this Article 27, 6, and 8 of the Constitution of Kenya. It's about the electoral on the electoral system. Article 81 on the electoral system. That in certain things on our electoral system that for your viewer, that we have to do something not just about numbers, but about the entire electoral system. It gives us such numbers in as much as possible are close to what, if not, at least one third of the most is present.
Simira, allow me to cut you short because there's a bit of a glitch. We're not able to hear you very well. As we try to fix that, let's come back to Gloria, and I'll ask this candid question. We're here today, and sometimes it's only pertinent that we have a conversation revolving around where the rain started beating us, because then we're likely to experience such a scenario in the event that we do not address the root cause of the problem. And true to it, the root cause is that, we've not been able to achieve the 2/3 gender rule. Just what has been the role of the women towards seeing this sail through or not sailing through? Because in Parliament yesterday, it was all about, actually, this is about the female counterparts. They are the very same people who've sabotaged this. And, it is absurd to even hear the members of Parliament arguing that way.
This is actually a case where you're blaming the victim.
Yeah.
You're literally coming out to say that it is actually your fault that you have not empowered yourself to step up and be given this 2/3, I think the rain started beating us the moment we felt that there's a part of the Constitution that we can ignore in terms of just the Bills of Rights.
Yeah.
When you look at certain bills that have continuously and consistently been ignored by the executive, by the judiciary, by the police service, and it goes to pass. It's like this one is not as important as that one. The moment you pick a part of that constitution and decide this is not what I'm going to follow because it's not important, then at what point do you draw the line? At what point do you say, okay, we might ignore the whole of chapter 4, which falls on the Bills of Rights, because really, what is the Bills of Rights?
Yeah.
But then the moment you come into the gender parity thing, it was not being taken seriously until the CJ decided to dissolve to give that advisory. And I actually think that had he not done what he did, we definitely would not be talking about it.
It would be marching into the next election having overlooked this.
We would be talking about other things. So it's a bit unfortunate that we have to always, something has to happen for us to react. It's like we have a leadership that's a little bit, it's reactionary. It's not proactive. You have a very solid constitution. I personally don't think our constitution needs to be changed. I even feel that certain chapters should be protected from any amendments, because the moment you start tweaking and changing a lot of things where the fundamental of the constitution lies.
What chapters are we looking at, for instance?
definitely the Bills of Rights.
Yeah.
I feel that those should be protected. And you saw what happened when we made the amendment in terms of under the Ministry of Interior, that you could actually be kept in holding in terms of if there is a terrorist activity or some, when we made that amendment, then it gave the police service, the executive, or any other person to use that loophole to unlawfully detain you. So I think certain chapters of this constitution should be protected, and I'm actually glad that there's a couple of people, David D, Jeretich Say, who have gone and they've had that they've gone to court to ensure that BBI or any other referendum, because it's not only BBI, we have Punguza Mzigo coming up, and God knows how many other types of referendum will be sparring left, right, and center. Right. The point is, they should protect these chapters, and if we are trying to change the constitution altogether, then I feel as though that should not be done in parliament, that should not be done in the guise of amendments. That should actually be taken as an independent thing, like that referendum, and take it back to the people, because it's the people who voted in the constitution. Yeah.
Well, we do not know whether Punguza Mzigo has any other life again, but then again, at least we know the Okoa, Mwananchi, Garama, and everything, like you say. Most of these talks would be culminating left, right, and center. Importantly, coming to you, Joseph, and we've been talking about this, and we seek to have solutions, but then again, it's hard to run away from this that many would consider as a fact, that the CJ was doing this, and it was reactionary to probably the battles that they've had between the executive and the judiciary. Just how much can we substantiate this? And moving forward, if we are to linger on the same, are there likelihoods then that this would be addressed amicably?
I should hope, I really verily hope that it's not just doing this as a way of getting at the president or at the executive, executive. I think, it's very clear that he has a duty to convey an order of the, that advice on the basis of an order of the High Court. I should hope, you said you didn't hear me clearly earlier. I was raising the question that the last order of High Court on this matter was made by Justice 29th of March 2017. One of the questions is, can the CJ of that order with this current and that it was said? That's a question. I wouldn't limit this to earlier. I would prefer to look at the governance issue and see that this is an opportunity. I think the justice.
We are not able to reflect very well, and hence that will become hard for us to react to what you are saying. I hope we're able to fix that as we await to see this being fixed. And before I come to you, Gloria, maybe it would be better if you expound on the same, but not before I get to introduce our very own reporter, David Muthoka, who's on a standby, and he'll be amongst the key reporters that will be traversing the different parts of the country, the city, just to spread the gospel of TV47 officially joining DSTV, and the channel number being 268. It's a pleasure. It's a great move, a great milestone for us as TV47 and you back at home, because then this will be a guarantee of you getting good, bigger, and better from us. Remember, the hashtag this morning is TV47 on DSTV, and actually the hashtag the entire day, and also hashtag home of untold story. Muthoka, can you hear me? David Muthoka, do we have you? Kindly paint a picture of what the day will be like.
Live from TV47 headquarters here at Parklands. As you can see behind me, a lot of activity is about to go down. Behind me, if my camera person and I could make a walk down this lane just to show you the real picture of what we are expecting today. A number of people here are gathered here, excited, brightened up. I am brightened up. Everybody's brightened up for the day. And we have a reason now for people within Nairobi to brighten up, because we are about to paint the city red and blue. Red for TV47, blue for DSTV. Because at Wednesday today, 11 a.m., starting 11 a.m. at channel 268, we will be making our debut on DSTV. We are about to hit the ground running. We'll be making stops as a caravan for TV47 at various areas in Nairobi. Are you a Westlands, Eastlands resident? We are about to get to you. We have a lot to offer. You will get that rare, priceless opportunity to interact with our presenters, with our anchors, and also we'll be able to offer you with a number of merchandise from masks to caps to t-shirts, because this is about you, this is about our viewers, not only us. Making that debut on DSTV is a very priceless moment, not only for TV47 but also for the fans, because now we understand we have a greater reach, and that means also we have to make sure that that greater reach is satisfied. We have to make sure that you get information that suits you, information that makes you glued on our TV station. A number of people here, we are not only making the stops in Nairobi, we will also be making other stops in other parts of the country, from Kisumu to Meru. And here we have a number of people, our team that will be making their journey to Kisumu to bring us information and news from there, from that Lakeside County. Josh Onsare, a very beautiful morning to you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Good. Now you can tell us where you're going and what we expect from you, sir.
First of all, we are headed to Kisumu County. Today we are launching on DSTV channel 268, whereby we'll be giving you good content.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that is not the only place we will be going today. We will be in Meru. Andrin, if I could just tell you for a moment, just tell us what to expect from you, because we understand your caravan is headed to Meru. We're going to get important, very impactful information, and information that relates to our viewers, not only from Meru, but to Nairobi. What do you expect from you today?
We expect a lot from people from Meru. We are going to a particular place called Maua, where miraa is grown. So we are going to visit people from there, let them know that we will be on DSTV from 11 a.m. today, as well as get stories from there, because we are about people. We are the 47 counties, 47 stories, 47 counties, and that's why we call ourselves TV47. So we are going to where people are to get stories from them and feel what they feel.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. As I said, Linda, we are just about to hit the ground running. We are just about to paint Nairobi City red and blue. Here is that truck, that caravan, that on top of it will be a number of TV47 crew. We are going to do things like never before. We are about to hit the ground running. It's going to be lit today. So, Linda, there's a lot for fans to expect today. If we could make just a walk, just to paint the exact picture of how ready we are, how ready to make this situation be for residents of Nairobi. I want to talk to Mapete, Tony Mwirigi, one of the MCAs who will be behind the microphone, who will be giving the hype and telling people, just showing the real picture and talking to you people, getting to the residents there and the fans and viewers from Nairobi. Tony Mwirigi, yeah. I see you're all excited.
No, allow me to speak in Kiswahili, man. You know the English is ngumu kiasi, man. So guys, siku leo tunatembea county ya Nairobi, maeneo mbalimbali, Kayole, Mudhurwa, Kibra, kila mahali, county zote. Imagine siku leo officially tunaingia ndani ya DSTV. Say DSTV. DSTV. Namba ngapi? 268. Kwa lugha ya Kikuyu ni Igere tadato alafu inyanya sijui. So guys, siku leo naingia officially ndani ya DSTV number 268. Make sure umeweza kutune kuanzia 11, si ndio? Alafu ucheki shows kalikali, news kalikali, shows za watoto, movie kalikali kuanzia saa 4 usiku. So siku leo tunaingia officially ndani ya DSTV.
I say as Tony says, leo ni ile siku tunaingia ndani ya DSTV. So basically there's a reason for our fans to smile. There's a reason for our viewers to be happy, to be excited about this day, because we are excited, and the fact that we are excited is a reason enough for you fans also to be excited out there. Over here is it's exclusive access to a number of areas at TV47. This is one of the main studios that we use for not only shows but also news anchoring. As I make my entry into it, as you can see, we are just about to interrupt a normal programming. Linda is right here. Linda is right here. Sorry. I know we've interrupted your show, but again.
Yeah, you have. It's so exciting.
Absolutely.
It's an amazing moment for sure. We'd love to get these people telling us 268 ni nini na kilugha yao. Mapete has tried something in Kikuyu, ametuangusha kama kutuangusha. But all the same, it's an exciting moment. Gloria, we are sorry for this, but then again, we just have to celebrate it. I'm sure a couple of times you've been asked by people, hey, DSTV,
Where can we watch you? I'm like,
from now, I'm telling them DSTV, channel 268.
Yes, channel 268. What is 268 in Kilugayenyo? Remember, we're traversing across all the 47 counties. It's going to be lit.
Absolutely. And if I can make, in my language, you say, ile than that na. We want to know what is 268 in your language. Linda, thank you so much. Although we came in uninvited. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So basically, exclusive access to one of our studios. This is where the news is prepared for you. And this is where a number of shows also come live to you. Not only the usual news bulletins and the morning cafes, also a number of shows such as the Beat Plug at 5:30. There are a number of shows that you expect from us, and that means now we are getting to you. Want to hear from you, not only through phone, not only virtually, but also let's have a one-on-one when you come to your area. Back to you, Linda. I am David Mudhoka.
And yes, bringing it up from Ubuthuka, that's what we have for you today. I'll not expound more because then again, it's important that we go back to the discussion. Remember, we're talking about this advice by CJ Maraga to President Uhuru Kenyatta. And we're trying to ponder on just how best we can overlook the factor that, this could be Maraga reacting to the differences that we've, evidently witnessed between the judiciary and the executive, to just having a candid discussion as to how we chart the way forward in regards to the same, before we come to Simeha.
I think also my question would be, why are our leaders silent about it?
President Uhuru
Kenyatta is silent for sure, and maybe he's trying to figure out what his decision is going to look like. Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who's now in government, is silent about it. I personally think it's because he's trying to figure out how does this elevate his platform to vie for 2022. So he's trying to look at that spin angle. And the deputy president as well hasn't spoken much about it. So maybe that's also something we need to look at, because it's like, this is a serious concern, and we're just having the legal minds out here speaking, the MPs saying this cannot be possible, of course, because they're protecting their jobs. And I'd really just want to hear
what they have to say. We had the likes of Ndavide speaking. Well, sometimes we question what positions they hold. The likes of Raila, what position he holds in government right now. But anyway, we know very well that he's one of the people who holds a huge clout in the country. And coming to you, Simeha, why do you think these individuals have decided to go silent on this matter? How many days after? Like a day 2, day 3 into it, but we still do not get anything from them.
I think it's better that they kept silent and if by saying the only thing they do, as many have done, especially MPs, is to react to anger. So in opinion, I'd rather they kept quiet on this, discuss, and then come to the nation source on the way forward and how this matter can be resolved. Some of the people who have spoken, especially members of parliament, have spoken with so much anger and reaching out CJ Maraga as if this is a personal matter. I think this is a personal call to Mr. Chief Justice. I see him as someone who is a
I do not know why today we're not able to hear you clearly. There seems to be some technical hitch on the same. Again, unfortunately, we have to catch you because we're not able to react on the same. But coming back to you, Gloria, and we take a look at these options that have been projected. Option number 1, if the president is to disobey this directive by the CJ, the president can choose to ignore the advisory, but the courts can overturn the decision and, of an illegal parliament. Dissolve. Then the president can go ahead and end the life parliament, and of course the consequences include voiding laws, delay. The president can choose to wait to dissolve the institution later, but how MPs will operate is still unknown. If he is to challenge this, the president can challenge the advisory in court and wait for a verdict. Remember very well that, again, the very same courts, Maraga sits in them. If he is to seek a second opinion, again, president can ask the Supreme Court to give its opinion. So whichever direction the president takes, there is a crisis.
Maybe he needs to look at it this way. If he ignores what does that speak of his legacy? What does that ultimately say? He's the president that went ahead to completely go against the constitution, completely, ignore this kind of advisory from the Chief Justice. If he dissolves, the idea would be that automatically we are going for what would seem like a by-election. So our MPs will be told, okay, now your positions are null and void, and go back to the people and ask if they would put you back to the seats that you have. The question would be then, if he dissolves parliament, the point of this advisory is based on the 2/3 gender rule not being achieved. So if he dissolves parliament, we go into a by-election. How then do we make sure that we still achieve that 2/3 gender rule? Because we could also go to a by-election that brings us back to this same position. So there's still some administrative things that we would have to do to ensure that we are actually solving the problem. We're not just dissolving parliament so we can take the advisory. And if he delays, of course it will be seen as if he's this is not my monkey, not my circus. I just have 600 and something days to go before the next election. I'll be quiet here in my corner and try to just wait it out. So again, it will speak so much of his leadership style, and also the fact that the responsibility literally has been placed on his shoulders, and he's choosing not to take any action. So for me, inaction is also a bad sign of good governance and good leadership. And then if he challenges it, or if he tries to seek a second opinion, I wonder what the basis would be on, because as we were told, you can't argue with the constitution. The constitution is law. So by the time you are challenging the constitution, you are either saying, I do not want this constitution, let's go for a referendum, which is what former prime minister is trying to do. So I mean, challenging it for me is like, that's not even an option. The option maybe would be to delay, or to go ahead and dissolve parliament, but still be very instrumental in terms of saying we are dissolving it, and in order for us to ensure we get to the 2/3 gender rule, we are going to push our political parties, for instance, to front female candidates, because there's so many ways to achieve that 2/3. So I feel as though we shouldn't just look at it from a nomination perspective. For instance, when you look at Kisii County, we have only one elected female leader. And in order for Kisii County to reach the 2/3 gender, or to try and achieve that 2/3 gender rule, then we like 80% of our nominations had to literally be given to women, because we only have one elected MCA. So then you start questioning, how did we get there? Of course, look at the parties. What kind of candidates are they fronting? Look at the civic education that we are giving our aspiring youth leaders. Are we actually informing them, you can vie for MCA because this is the scope of the work, or you can vie for this, because it starts also from the civic education. Because sometimes you have imposter syndrome, and people think, oh, MCA is too big for me, I'm just used to being a church leader. So we have to go out to the possible leaders, give them sensitize them on these positions, try to motivate them and empower them in a sense that they understand you can actually, since we brought the women representative, it doesn't mean that as a woman you can't vie for any other position. You can actually vie for MP, you can vie for governor, you can vie for all these things. So as much as we are pushing to dissolve, which actually my stand is that it should be dissolved. Parliament should be dissolved. Not only for the 2/3 gender rule, but for so many reasons.
Let's come back to Zimeher. And honestly, at the level, before we even look at the possible options that President Uhuru Kenyatta has, disobey, dissolve, delay, challenge, 6-second opinion, genuinely, are we able to have a conversation where we can have the parliamentarians again seek to it that we are able to find, or we're able to achieve the 2/3 gender rule? They say they're still fixing the audio for Zimeher, so we'll still come back to you. What are the likelihoods of us again having parliament passing this bill of matters 2/3 gender rule before we look at these options that President Uhuru Kenyatta has? Because as many have argued, that in as much as there's that need to dissolve the parliament, there's barely time. There's so much that we're dealing with right now. And honestly, Kenyans are not supposed to be treated to an election as tighter as this.
But that argument that we don't have time and Kenyans should not be treated to an election, that argument should be applied across board. It should be applied even to the referendum.
The argument was that a referendum is a yes and no affair and then over and dusted. But this one will take more than we probably That is, I had an analyst yesterday who argued that.
Really?
Yes.
I'm sorry to say, but that is lazy thinking.
Yeah.
Because whether it's yes or no, we are still preparing ballot papers, we are still putting resources, we are still sensitizing the people, there's still going to be campaigns against all for it.
Yeah.
So the same statistics apply for when you're pushing for a referendum. So if you're going to say that we don't have time, we're dealing with pandemic, we cannot go into this dissolution thing, the parliament being dissolved, then it's the same argument.
The argument is that after the elections have been conducted, then what happens in the houses, setting up of these committees is a whole activity.
And I would,
Kenyans do not want to be treated.
I would throw the same thing.
Yeah.
So after we go for the referendum and we do the yes and no, what happens then? Yeah. It's the same thing.
Yes,
so
the promulgation process and all
yes,
that.
It's the same thing, because then we're going to start all over again. A new constitution, sensitizing the people, trying to figure out, what are the challenges, what are the loopholes. Even just implementing it takes, according to what they're telling us, we'll need a 1-year transition. So for me, the argument that we cannot go for an election, yes, it can stand.
Right.
But may that argument also be used against anything in terms of referendum, anything in terms of any electoral process that is not a by-election based on either death or resignation of a candidate.
All right.
So that's how I see it.
Okay, well, do we have Simera now? All right, when we're set with him, we'll cross over to him. But then, coming back to you, and now that we're talking about a referendum, what are the implications of this advisory or this advice of CS Maraga to President Uhuru Kenyatta on the BBI?
BBI is like a really bad brand. It's like this brand that is not selling and we have to offload it. And I personally believe that the moment the drivers and the initiators of BBI realized that they are unable to sell this thing to the people so that they can get the popular initiative and go for a referendum, they chose to go to parliament. So, they were like, okay, plan B, let's try and make the amendments through parliament, pass it. After all, we've reorganized the committees and we have like the numbers. So, I mean, the moment now we are questioning the legitimacy of parliament, then you're saying BBI is dead. Unless, of course, they want to take it back to the people. Which I wouldn't put it past the former Prime Minister, because I believe that there's a serious plan to buy Punguza Mzigo as the brand and tweak whatever they wanted to put in BBI, use it through because Punguza Mzigo at this moment kind of resonates with
the needs of the people,
and then tweak what they want to tweak, whether it's the expansion of the executive, and then bring it back in terms of a new brand, which is Punguza Mzigo. I feel as though the only reason the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga is so hell-bent in any one of these referendum initiatives is because he needs a platform.
Right.
He needs a platform for campaign. Because remember, once he shook the hands of President Uhuru Kenyatta, he stopped his platform in terms of we are the people who champion the rights of the private citizen. It ended. So he found himself in this very awkward space where he's not opposition, he's not really government. So even to the public eye, we are wondering how are you then going to come back and sell us a dream and sell us something that you so for him, BBI, whether it fails or it doesn't fail, for him this is a platform. If it fails, he can then come to the people and say, I was offering you a position, I was offering you something that that would change your lives, but you can see so and so fought it. So now I'm here to make sure that this is what I go and sell to the people. So it's actually, he's trying to create a narrative for his campaign platform.
Let me play the devil's advocate and look at what we've been treated to right now after this advice by the CJ and numerous other court battles that we've witnessed, that culminated from the loopholes within the Constitution. A clear indication then that yes, we have a Constitution that has not been implemented even halfway or quarter way, but reality also is that within the very same Constitution, there are numerous loopholes that need to be sealed. Do you suppose then that the BBI will come in handy, first of all, to help solve or seal these loopholes that have been noted evidently, because there are lots of things that the current Constitution did not envision, and we've got ourselves into that point. So then there's need to address the same. So don't you think that in a way Baba will be justified to call for these amendments?
If you've read BBI to detail,
well, it is not. I will assume that it's not here.
The one that they released,
yes.
The one that they released
yes.
in Bomas.
Okay.
If you read that document in detail with the 9-point agenda that it has, it does not touch on any loopholes that we are currently talking
about. Mm-hmm.
What it does, it says, we have these loopholes here in terms of the separation of powers or in terms of running a cabinet. So we're not going to try and fix the loophole.
Yeah.
We're going to throw this whole thing away
and get
a new system.
Ones. But the conversation is still on. Don't you think that in such a scenario then they'd want to incorporate such loopholes, for instance, what we witnessed today, to sell the agenda of the BBI, to tell us that, you know what, well, look, we noticed this and it has not been addressed, so we want the BBI to come in and address this.
But that's not what they're interested in. BBI drivers and of that initiative, they're not interested in solving problems. You see, that is an assumption that they came with the document because they really saw the pain points of the constitution and they wanted to sort of solve those problems.
Yeah.
That is not the interest of the drivers of that initiative. And so the moment they saw that this thing is not popular with the people, that's why it's easy for them to ultimately drop it and pick up another umbrella and try to drive whatever initiative. For instance, when you see, I see some our leaders like Governor Anne Waiguru going around saying that BBI is going to solve the gender parity, BBI is going to actually bring more women into power. I understand that one of the things they want to front under BBI is that for every elective position, say governor position, the deputy must be of the opposite gender. And then I ask myself, these are very good ideas. Just the same as the ideas that are in the constitution of the 2/3 gender parity are good ideas. We're good at coming up with ideas. But then when it comes to executing those ideas, we always find a reason not to. So for me, BBI is an excuse. It's like we don't want to go this way of the 2/3 gender parity. It might take us too long. You're sitting in parliament. Why don't we just come up with BBI? And then if a governor runs, the opposite sex runs.
And they speak of it and say it's a 50-50 affair. It's no longer a 2/3 gender rule. And then we ask ourselves as women, or you look at it, maybe I'd pose this question to you. Do you agree with the male counterparts that their likelihoods are the very same women are sabotaging this war on achieving the 2/3? Because we've not even achieved the 2/3 gender rule. But then now, some of them are saying that it's no longer about the 2/3, it's about a 50-50 affair.
I think some of our women leaders are actually barriers to achieving the 2/3 gender. When I look at their position in certain matters, just for instance, the health bill that is being proposed, I think it's by Susan Kihika. When I
reproductive health.
Yes, reproductive health. When I look at how the women leaders who are in parliament, who should be sensitizing the public about what the bill really pertains to, what are the details, what we are trying to push in there, and then you see them taking certain positions that are actually against the woman, that are against the girl child, then you ask yourself, are those the same people who are going to try and push for 2/3 gender, And then the other thing is, I question, for instance, when I look at the governors, Governor Anne Waiguru, Governor what's her name, Charity Ngilu, and I look at their cabinets, and I look at the people that they are working with and how they, in their small spaces, have tried to sort of be an exemplary example of, since I can't do it in parliament, I can't do it on national level, but in my house, in my space, in my county, within the county executive that I have I really tried to implement that? That's what I question. And then when I see how they choose not to mentor youth aspiring leaders. When I see how, for instance, Governor Anne Waiguru goes around literally being the flag bearer of what is a horrible example of a woman leader, then I ask myself, is that the same person we hope will fight for our rights anywhere? So for me, actually, I feel as though, yes, there is an argument that is going out there that women are our own enemies, and I see it a lot. And the only way to defeat that is to try and make have actions that will support our argument. Let us see you trying to give a hand up to the people that you work with, the people who work around you, before you go to our screens and say BBI is going to bring ABC. Because I don't believe in words, I believe in doers, in actions.
All right, and our reporter in Rwanda, Diana Iriza, was just compiling a report on what the situation is like on two-third gender rule in Rwanda. I mean, even before we get to listen to a report or we even get to see what it is that she worked on, reality is that we know that Rwanda has been able to achieve this tremendously, and Rwanda is doing great. They have surpassed even the stipulated number that had been put on board. They're talking of about 61%, which is largely the highest across the world. A great undoing or a great move, and should we borrow a leaf from them? And why is it that it's becoming so hard for us to do that?
We should borrow a leaf from them, and I think Rwanda has been very intentional in their actions. You know, for instance, when you look at how they deal with certain issues, like even just dealing with the environment, they're very intentional on what they're saying. We want a clean country, so we are going to start by punishing anybody who's caught littering. So when you go again with the gender and how they manage, they're very intentional in how they are selecting their leaders. And another thing that you have to give it up to Rwanda is that they respect their women. They respect their women. You know, it is a situation where the culture within the political circles, the culture within just any industry in Rwanda, they respect their women. When you come to Kenya and look at how our women leaders, our elected women leaders are treated. Just the other day we saw an MCA lady being, you know, rained down with blows. And you look at that picture and you ask yourself, because you can't really say this is a security issue, you can't really, it's an issue of culture. There is absolutely no respect for a woman who comes out and says, I want to run for an elective seat. And if there is any respect, they sort of tweak it, you know, like, you know, that's not a woman. You know, look at how all the connotations we've given a lady like Martha Karua, you know. Oh, she's the Iron Lady, which is, yes, it's, but you know, look at how she's taken it. She's abrasive, she's this, she's that. Instead of understanding, wow, you know, this is the epitome of what it means to stand up as a strong leader. And, you know, we sort of castigate them, put them down, try and look into their, oh, is she not married? She doesn't, that's why this, that. But they don't have that in Rwanda.
Have we allowed that to sink into us, and we have had even the strong ones that we all thought would be the first ones to push this and, you know, break the ceiling or break the glass? Have they allowed this to get into their head so that they have again gone back to their very own cocoons? Because yesterday again, the panel that I had, you know, the argument was like, why is it that women do not want to take up the elective positions? You know, why is it that they run away? Why is it that today we do not have that strong one that wants to be the president? Instead, they are fighting to be number two.
We absolutely have cornered these strong women leaders, and it's unfortunate because, I mean, we are all human. For instance, I'm human. Sometimes I go on air and I say certain things, and I receive a lot of backlash. And if I let it, it might get me sitting back and saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Let me take, you know, a back seat. But when you look at what we do to even the youth aspiring leaders, for instance, in the spaces that I work in, and you have youth leaders, girls, ladies coming up there, 20, 21, 22, they want to hold positions of leadership in their communities and stuff. And then you look at the reaction from the communities. And if we don't have proper mentorship of these upcoming leaders, if we don't hold their hands, if we don't sort of give them a safe space to tell them, it's okay if they call you rough, abrasive, whatever, it's okay, you keep at it. If we don't have that, which we don't, then what happens is, at 20, 21, all the way to 35, you're beat down and beat down and beat down. And at one point, at around 30-something, when you should be at the epitome of that, you know, taking that leadership, going into elective politics, you're sort of, you're battered down. It's completely like, and then you go back into being a wife, you go back into being a mother, and you kind of, you know, find this space where everybody tells you, yeah, you know, it's okay, this is where you should be. So what we lack is mentorship. As I said, we have a lot of women leaders that are out here. If you go and ask them, how many aspiring women leaders are you mentoring? I can promise you they're not. Zero. Yeah.
And speaking of it, I'll ask, what are the women leaders doing to prove to the world that, indeed, the women need this space. Indeed, the women deserve, actually. It's not about need, because we started by affirmative action just to show that we need this space. And then officially, it has escalated to that point where we have to prove ourselves. And, you've had this, that, we honestly do not need the women reps position. What are they doing? They are just flower girls. And it's unfortunate, it's heartbreaking to hear that. But then the question is just how much have they proven to the world that yes, they deserve?
The women reposition, first of all, is a very, I think one of the things that needs to be done is sensitization on what that position should do, what it's responsible for, literally what is the job description of the women reposition, because it's very misunderstood, and even the office holders themselves have a wrong idea. And so what's happening is that they are the ones who are killing that brand, they are killing that position. I think what is not being done enough in our spaces in Kenya, we don't have mentorship. And I really hold on to mentorship because, for instance, myself, I needed a lot of mentorship to get to where I am. And I know for a fact that if I didn't have that mentorship, at one point I would just, shut down everything and focus on being a mother. So I think my challenge would be to the women elected leaders or appointed leaders. You have a space. And we're not saying that you pick someone to replace you, which ideally that's what mentorship
is all about. And that's the biggest fear.
And it's the biggest fear. And that's the thing that stops a lot of not only women but even men from mentoring. Because there's this imposter syndrome that keeps our elected leaders. Just look at some of them. I keep speaking about Ann Waiguru because I feel like she has a space and a platform. When you look at some of her actions and some of the things and opportunities that she has to mentor anybody within her spaces, and then you look at the intentional approach of not doing so. Then you ask
yourself why.
Why? So I think mentorship for me would be a thing. Holding somebody's hands, directing them and telling them, this might work for now, new age politics or whatever, but there's this and this to think about. And celebrating. Yesterday was Martha Karua's birthday. I had one of those T-shirts that says "I was not taught," because it's the tagline that is credited to her. I think also celebrating them, because when you celebrate someone, then you sort of say, "This is the person that we want our girls, our ladies to
look up to and emulate."
And exactly, we don't celebrate women, elected women leaders enough. We need to celebrate them.
All right, affirmative action. Looked like a good thing, a beautiful thing. Unfortunately, Simeha, we're not able to get a hold of him, so we'll just do this all the same. And I know we're capable 101%. So affirmative action still there, and its lifeline is on the balance, because the argument is that okay, if we have to achieve this, then go for the elective position. We're not going to do affirmative action. And this cuts across to the youth and to the vulnerables in the society. Would we be comfortable, would you be comfortable to just see it die a natural death? Or being massacred, for that matter, because that would even be natural.
I think there's a downside of being given things. Because you've seen our nominated members of parliament, nominated senators, they are always, it's like, but you're nominated. In fact, you sit down, vote like this. It takes away that authority, that power that you should have.
But don't you think it equally gives you that opportunity to say that, I need to get the challenge? The likes of Naisula Leisuda.
No, that only works with different personalities. The people who get nominated and they forget, they completely forgot why. They're comfortable. For instance, there is a lady from Nyamira County who was sitting in the Senate committee that was on Ann Waiguru's impeachment. I didn't even know about her until that Senate committee. I mean, how many years in are we? And I was like, oh my goodness, there's a lady from Nyamira County. She's not heard about her, which doesn't mean she's not doing anything. It just means like, where have you been? Where have you been this whole time?
And you have to be somewhere anyway. If at all you were nominated.
So for me, this the nominated positions, there's a downfall about it because it's like you want to be empowered. I want to be empowered in terms of, I'm a woman, I can fight for my rights, I can be here, but then you also want to be given things.
Right.
So, there's a paradox there.
Right.
So I believe that the affirmative action should also look into ways to ensure that as much as we are putting in these initiatives that are making sure that we have that gender parity sorted out, that it still comes out as a way of, and which is why the proposal of if the governor is a man, then or the other way around, I feel kind of sort of brings that back, because you still have to run for office. Nothing is going to be given to you. It just means that suddenly in 2022 we are going to have certain number of governors and certain number of deputy governors, and they are going to be of the opposite gender. So it immediately just brings the women to the table. The same thing with the youth. Punguza Mzigo is trying to take out the deputy governor position. And I asked this question to the Secretary General. I said to him, instead of taking out positions, we have already understood that there are not enough positions for the youth. Why don't you define that deputy governor role, and then
let them have a clear role?
And then put a caveat to ensure that the maximum is 40. So what have you done? You've automatically brought the youth to the table.
And rolled it out and said that it's not.
But they still have to do the work. So I'm a candidate, yes, because I qualify, because I'm under 40, but I still have to do the work in terms of going out, trying to convince people to vote for me. So when I get there, it's not a position that was given to me. So that's how I feel about when we're looking at affirmative action. We absolutely have to make sure that the line is not that we are giving handouts. We are not saying, persons with disability, you're so disabled, here, let's give you this. Because there's dignity that has to be preserved when you're carrying out that affirmative action.
So in this case, then we can say affirmative action can be maintained, but there are special ways and approaches to it before we decide to root it out 101%.
Absolutely.
All right, so as we get to wind up or ponder lastly on this particular issue that is at hand still, on whether indeed the president should abide by that advice given by the CJ. The reality is that the argument, the few people who've been able to, expound and try to interpret what the Constitution dictates, they argue that there's going to be a constitutional crisis in the event that the president decides to dissolve Parliament, which is what you advocate for. Don't you think then that there's need for us to evade that crisis?
We are already in crisis.
Okay.
Yeah. We are in an economic crisis. We are in an absolutely big cultural crisis in terms of a lot of the things that you're seeing. So, we are already in crisis. Crisis mode activated.
Okay.
So I think, when we're borrowing like 9 trillion, we are queuing to borrow 9 trillion so that we can sustain our operations in government. That's a crisis. So a constitutional crisis to me right now is like, okay.
It's what we're in right now already.
We have been in crisis mode, I think, since the handshake. Yeah. We went into crisis.
So if the crisis is being brought about by the problem that we have with the Constitution, then is it not wise to change the Constitution?
I think what is wise at this moment is we need to change our leaders, because the Constitution is not really the problem. The
implementers of the same.
The implementers of that Constitution, there is a problem. And that's why I feel as though dissolving Parliament is one way to change our leaders. And to me, that is like it's curing one symptom of the crisis that we are in. Because who knows, we have 600 days to go. Even if we spend 200 of those days in a by-election, we'll have a 400 days with those leaders. And who knows the impact that it will have.
Okay. All right. The battle is officially against Maraga. I do not know how far it gets, but we can only wait to see what will happen. I think it would be unfair for me to go without mentioning the aspect of education. I've just seen you going through the newspaper and touching on matters education. Students should go back to school that soon? Amid all this confusion?
Students should have never left school if going back to school meant a mask and 1 meter distance. Because what really have we done? Nothing. So if you're saying we're going back to school because we are sensitizing the teachers on how to handle COVID, I've seen that they have a 3-week crash course, a crash course on sensitizing them on how to handle COVID-19. as if these teachers have been living in a place where we've not been handling COVID-19. I feel as though, I've said it again, I will say it again, our CS Magoha should be fired.
Oh, ouch. Yeah. That's a little bit radical.
He should have radical a long time ago.
But I mean, again, I play the devil's advocate, and I think he's said this constantly, that, you know, anything that he comes out to speak to the public is something that has been deliberated on by the, you know, the stakeholders. So while we might say that, okay, well, he's the umbrella person that we should point fingers at, don't you think that it's really been hectic to reach decisions on this one?
I'm wondering which stakeholders, because if he's talking about teachers, if he's talking about parents, if he's talking about owners of private institutions and educational learning institutions, those people have come up with already from March. Yeah. They came up with advisories, they came up with ideas, and they fronted their ideas to that committee, and they said, you know, this is how we should go on forward. This is what we think we should do. And a majority of those ideas have been thrown out. At the very beginning, those stakeholders actually advised the CS, instead of just cutting down all the academic year and saying we've suspended the academic year, which is absurd, they said, at the very beginning, we have this Nyumba Kumi initiatives that works on community, that works on security. Can we tap into it? They had a methodology, but that advice was never really looked into until much later, when there was so much pressure from outside institutions, not stakeholders of the Ministry of Education. Then he came back to tell us, now we're going to do community education. But even so, what he did, he took the advice and then he butchered it by saying, we're not going to continue with the curriculum. You're going to the Nyumba Kumi initiatives to teach them how to dig, to teach them how to wash their hands. So, I mean, if you ask me, this is a case of, and just allow me to say this is a case of a professor who is so stuck on his old ways, who is so stuck on how things must work, because this is how I believe they must work, such that when he gets advice from younger leaders, from youthful leaders who possibly have some know-how on what's going on right now with the world as it is, he shuts them down.
Before he is fired, well, as you would propose, we were just into the inception of the competence-based curriculum, and nobody's talking about that as of now. Are we going to get our students into a terrible crisis? Terrible for that matter.
You know what else no one is talking about? No one is talking about computers. Yeah.
Yes.
You remember we started with computers.
Yes. Digital learning, and every child. Yes.
If that was actually realized by the time we hit the pandemic in March, we would not be
having the crisis there. Digital learning would be easy.
Digital learning would have been easier. Okay. We would have tried to, of course, equip some of those schools that don't have electricity, that don't. We would have tried to use social halls. We would have tried to now, you know, go to the pain points. But we didn't have. There was no basis. There was nothing. It was like, how do we start procuring? And by the way, if you ask me, half the money that was stolen by the COVID billionaires could have sufficed on giving our students tablets.
Devices.
So, and that's the sad thing about this whole situation, is that money was lost that could have been of very high impact in the education sector, in the health ministry, in even just economic recovery, because right now we have a lot of SMEs that have been shut down. We could have had this money that was lost would have literally moved us from point A to B to a level where we wouldn't feel like, oh my goodness, now we have to start from scratch.
Wow, that's unfortunate. Worst case scenario, worst case scenario or best case scenario, what would be the most appropriate time to have our students back to school? October, January 2021. If October, how much of an impact will that be? Are our students set to sit for an examination come April?
I think our students should go back to school tomorrow.
Wow.
And not going back in the physical aspect. I think we should have completely exhausted the original Nyumba Kumi initiative, which is not what Magoha rolled out. And I think had we been doing one thing constantly, you know, the problem is we've been
today
switching.
We're doing this tomorrow.
Yeah, today we're doing this, tomorrow Magoha has changed his mind. Today he's very indecisive, you know. So had we stuck to one thing, we could have at least tried to make it a bit more efficient by now. So if you ask me, I think our students should go back to school tomorrow, one way or another, if not physically, in a way that would help them push forward with their curriculum, because the world has not stopped. And we might pause our academic year, but the world is continuing.
Okay, well, the president is set to sit down with the COVID-19 crisis team as they chart the way forward of the, for the country on whether we reopen or not, on whether what happens and what happens after we all eagerly wait to see whether indeed some of these restrictions are going to be eased. What do you expect of him? What would you tell him as we get to wind up?
I would tell him, first of all, he needs to relook into that team. Because if it's the same team that handled how we have come from COVID-19 from March up until now, that team should have been fired again. They haven't really done much. And I think what I would tell him is, for future, immediate future, any crisis, any you'd call events, you need a crisis management kind of team. You need a resiliency plan. A resiliency plan means that you have stakeholders from across board and you listen to those stakeholders. And also a resiliency plan, what it does, it ensures that by the time you're looking into things 2 months from now, so that he wouldn't be sitting with that team now. You understand? He would have already sat with them in March. They would have already rolled out a resiliency plan. So what he would have been doing now, we would have been like executing. Exactly. It's like now we are in September, going in October. At this part of my resiliency plan, we should be opening the economy. We should. The fact that he's sitting down with a team
that was there initially.
That was
not able to chart the way forward.
Exactly. That did not roll out a plan that was transparent. There is the problem.
Gloria Aruba, honestly, that's just out of this world. He's a youth policy analyst. I mean, many would have argued the numerous youths that we probably need to have, at the top of the helm, probably we can get to experience this change that we keep talking about. And on that very note, I think I lock up this session of current affairs as we cross over to a different session altogether. Thank you also, Simeha. Sadly, we're not able to go with you all the way to the end. But remember, it is hashtag TV47 on DSTV, channel number 268, and hashtag home of untold story. Keep us company. The day is jammed up just for you. It's an interesting session. I mean, we cross over to matters of fashion after this break.
Since late last year, the coronavirus COVID-19 has emerged as a serious healthcare threat. This is an infection that has gone global and no one has been spared. The government, through the Ministry of Health, has put in measures to keep Kenyans safe against COVID-19.